I really hope the free software community is going to forgive me, because with my bad painting skills, I'm going to be giving the following programs a bad reputation: GIMP, MyPaint, Krita, Mtpaint, Pinter, Lazpaint, and also some honourable mentions: OurPaint and Blender. These are all open sourced raster painting programs which you can use on an operating system commonly known as Linux. Now, I've known about most of these programs for many years, because Linux and I both met when we were teenagers, and then I said, you know what, you're the operating system for me, and I basically stuck with it ever since. And I've been using Arch Linux, by the way, as my go-to operating system for the past 13 years, which is a bit embarrassing because I feel like I should know more about it. But anyway, instead of drawing on paper, which is what I usually do, I'm going to be using every single one of these open source painting programs. And instead of doing a tier list, which has no nuance about it at all, in each respective program I will be painting its personality, or what I believe its personality is. Okay. Now, I was going to give you my unfiltered experience of using each one, but even an edited down version of that was going to make this video over 5 hours long. So I'm just going to tell you what happened and how I felt after using each one. So let's have a look at GIMP first. Now, the first publicly available version of GIMP was released in January 1996. And then version 1, finally, was released in 1998. And version 2 was released in 2004. And recently, version 3 has been released in the year 2025. So if you're wondering what they were doing in the last 20 years between version 2 and 3, they did actually release 75 versions of GIMP between version 2 and 3. I don't know why they didn't just name one of them version 3, but I guess programmers know when they've hit their own milestones. Now, before using GIMP version 3, the last time I had used GIMP for drawing and painting was many years ago. I remember a time when you couldn't even rotate the canvas, which is not something I do anyway, even when drawing on a physical medium. It's quite a novelty. Whoa, look at me. Oh, wow. So what do I actually think about GIMP? Well, if someone forced me to only use GIMP as my digital drawing tool for the next few years as some kind of punishment, I could only presume that they haven't realised that GIMP version 3 has been released. And then I would say, oh dear, whatever will I do? What terrible thing did I do to deserve this? What horrible thing will you do next to me? Are you going to force me to learn digital painting while trapped on a tropical island resort with a personal chef? Ugh. And then I'll just make some great art with it. Now, GIMP's interface still feels centered around photo editing. It's just a vibe I get from it, but it does make a good painting app. I also really liked the new non-destructive filter effect layers that you can now use. For example, I added some text to this computer terminal and then applied a FX layer to it, which you can do just by adding a filter from the filter menu. I could then change the text under the blur effect I created. So much better than before when adding a filter was immediately rendered into the image. GIMP also has a massive undo history for each session, which I could have used to erase this terrible thing that I was painting. It was going through an ugly Sonic the Hedgehog phase, which I fixed later using the same method, just making the eyes bigger. What? No, it's not a furry. It's not perverted enough. Now, after using GIMP for quite a while, I was really starting to enjoy it. I only had a few small irritations I had to get over first. The first one being, GIMP version 3 seemed to crash on me every few hours. Although I wasn't using an app image or a Flatpak installation, so maybe it was just the bleeding edginess of Arch Linux again. Debian, why did I abandon you? Was it getting the latest software? Yes, I think it was that, and combined with the Arch Linux wiki, that's what sold me. Anyway, pressing save is always a good idea. I did lose a bit of art by not pressing save and trusting that GIMP wouldn't crash on me, which it never has in the past. Okay, anyway, the second thing that irritated me was that I couldn't figure out how to attach brush dynamics to a brush. Brush dynamics still seems to be a separate entity, which settings don't automatically change when you change brushes. So in most painting apps, when you select a brush, the way that brush behaves according to the data from your graphics tablet is included in with the brush you've selected. But in GIMP, two separate things. You'll select a brush, which is sort of like a brush head, because it doesn't tell you how the brush is going to behave, and then you need to go into your tool options and then click on Enable Dynamics and then select the dynamics of the brush. I guess the advantage of that is that you can easily make a brush behave differently without creating a new one just by selecting a different set of dynamics for it. I could also use the MyPaint brush engine instead, actually, inside of GIMP, which would solve that tiny issue, if it's really an issue, not really. The MyPaint brush engine inside of GIMP is a pretty cool feature. MyPaint is actually the next painting program I'll be covering. And the third reason was that on my computer there was some kind of bug, I think, which made any transparent image brush a lot darker than the original image that I made the brush from. I have version 2.10 on my laptop and it didn't behave that way at all. The only way I could solve it was to decrease the opacity in the brush settings. So who knows, maybe by the time you watch this video that might be fixed anyway. It takes me so long to make a video these days that all of these bugs might be fixed. Who knows, version 4 might be out by that time. Anyway. It also could just be a problem on my system. I spent ages trying to figure it out. Many hours of trial and error. Until I gave up and realized that I should be using the program the way it is currently working instead of using it the way it should be working. It drove me so insane that I ended up going for a little walk in nature to clear my head. Now, when making digital art, it's very important to look after your mental health and go for a walk once in a while, which is what I am doing. I have been incredibly frustrated with GIMP 3.0.2, and I honestly think it is amazing at the same time. It's only got like a few little quirks in it, basically, that needs to be worked out. Yeah, I'm not going over there. Anyway, realistically, that is often the case with any kind of software. You'll find some unexpected behavior, and then you'll just have to find some way around it. So, a quick summary of GIMP. The brush engine is very good. Also, you can use the MyPaint brush engine in it as well. It has fantastic, amazing image editing abilities, and I can't think of anything that it's lacking in that regard. Now, is it intuitive to use? Well, I think for any program, ease of use is very subjective. No one is born with the ability to use any kind of software. But eventually, once I gave in to how it works, I had a good time. And after some time, I even started to wonder if there was some advantages to the interface, like how the brushes and the brush dynamics can be chosen separately. Now let's talk about the next program, MyPaint. What is MyPaint? Well, it's for painting and nothing else. So if you're used to using a painting program that was originally designed to be an image editor, this can be quite shocking, as many features that you might be used to are now missing, like selecting something and then trying to resize it. For example, that may annoy you, and may annoy many people actually, as it's one of the many advantages to drawing and painting digitally, but it's a pretty simple program to use. I never ever read anything about it, how to use it. You can try reading the documentation if you like. When I found the start of the documentation, I read it, and then I started looking for the rest of it, and then I had realized that I had just basically read the whole thing. That's how short it is. Let's look at the GIMP documentation, for example. It just goes on and on and on forever, because GIMP can almost do anything you could possibly imagine. So it's an easy program to learn. It doesn't get in the way until you decide you want to manipulate your painting. This is more of a traditional painting experience. You can edit the files in GIMP though, which can be very handy. Now it does have a killer feature, and that is the infinite canvas, which means you can paint away, and MyPaint will continually make the canvas larger no matter what direction you're painting in, until your RAM runs out basically. So it feels like the canvas is infinite. It's not like infinite zoom, it's infinite zooming out. And it's raster graphics, so if you get really carried away, the image you'll export will be absolutely enormous. As in an enormous resolution. Now the brush engine is very good. It's a very large collection of sliders to play with, which sometimes can be a wee bit sensitive sometimes. At one stage I had made something and I was scared to even change any value by any tiny little bit when the brush was close to the way I wanted. But it's quite powerful for a brush engine that doesn't support image textures. And it also has smudging as a value within the brush engine. In GIMP, that is a separate tool, so that's cool. Now, I don't think I could use MyPaint on its own. I would use it with GIMP. It works very well with GIMP. GIMP can easily open the native .ora, the open raster files that MyPaint creates. But I found that if you save a GIMP project as an open raster file and then try and open it in MyPaint, all the layers have no idea where to go on the infinite canvas. That was a bit disappointing, but I don't think I'd use it that way anyway. So my conclusion of MyPaint. MyPaint is a great painting program and nothing else. That's why I drew it as a one-trick pony. It has this infinite canvas feature for people who can't be bothered to rescale the canvas manually. It's one of those programs that is quick to learn and it doesn't get in the way. The downside of it, it doesn't have any inbuilt image editing tools that most painting programs have, but the files are compatible with GIMP and also Krita. So if you really need to, you can open up MyPaint's file in GIMP and do all of your image editing in there. Yes, GIMP and MyPaint, they work really well together, which is why I drew the MyPaint horse right next to Wilbur, the GIMP mascot. Now you know what I'm getting sick of? I'm really getting sick of trying to paint this ugly pony. So I think let's try some other painting app. Now, let's talk about a program that I have mentioned before a few times already. Krita. Or is it pronounced Krita? I do not know. Now, there are many things I could say about Krita, because it can do almost anything it seems. Anything 2D, and it's made out of pixels, it can do it. It's like GIMP when it comes to painting features, but it has an interface that looks so much and feels so much better for painting. Also, the brush engine is extremely extensive. It's almost overwhelming. There's like multiple brush engines in Krita. So to try out Krita, I had a go at painting Kiki, I think it's pronounced, the cyber squirrel, the Krita mascot. Now, Krita also has 2D animation features with onion skinning, keyframes. You can have layers of animations. Here are some I've tried to make. The 2D animation in this program is actually pretty good. Like, here's the last test I was doing. Right. Go back to beginning. Here we are. It's a bit of a straight ahead animation. And that's the end of it. That's when I abandoned it. Yep. Yeah, but you got all the keyframes and everything there, and works very well. And this is one I animated. I think this is probably the last video I posted on YouTube actually. Yeah, excellent. And you can also open up and edit a MyPaint file, yes. I mentioned that before, repeating myself. And you know how I said that MyPaint has an infinite canvas feature? Well, with a little bit of intervention, you could also claim that Krita has that too. Well, actually, you could claim that any program that has a resize the canvas function has an infinite canvas feature. GIMP included, of course. But with Krita, you can do it very quickly just by clicking on an arrow which shows up when you scroll all the way to the end of the canvas. And it then doubles the size of your canvas in whatever direction you've clicked in. I think I've got a lot of breathing in this recording. I just might as well lean into it. I'm a real human being making a review. I breathe air. Okay. Now, this is the part of the video where I usually start saying bad things about the program, but I'm struggling to think of anything. Now, when I first tried out Krita 10 years ago, I didn't like it that much. It ran really slow on my old ThinkPad. Well, it wasn't old at the time, but this was 10 years ago. It had a second generation Core i5 in it. And the text and path tools in Krita were really irritating for me to use. So I went back to using GIMP. And then I got sick of that too and I went back to using paper. That's not an app, just physical paper. But using Krita for me has been a very smooth experience. Didn't even crash on me once. The undo history doesn't seem to be very long by default. It's only 30 actions you can undo, but you can change that in settings, as with everything else. So what is my conclusion of Krita? Krita is definitely one of those programs that is trying to be the killing blow for the overpriced, cloud-based spyware that some other programs are becoming. And I think it might be succeeding. Over the years I've watched Krita improve, and I can't really think about much to complain about really. It even seems to be really reliable. It also behaved very nicely this time with my XP Pen graphics tablet, something it used to struggle with. It has many features and I find all of them quite easy to use. I mean, you can never have something that has tons of features and it also being super easy to use, but this feels pretty close. If I was only allowed one program to paint with, it would be this one. Fortunately, I don't have to make that decision. But Krita would definitely be the one. Now, I did say Krita is easy to use. I did read some reviews on Alternative 2 and some people were oh, it's so hard to use. I don't know what I'm doing. And maybe it's just because I'm used to Krita the most, out of all these painting programs, because I've used it the most recently. But the fact is, even when I just started using it, I only needed to open the documentation to learn how it works just a few times, and the rest was just through non-irritating experimentation. I didn't have to spend ages scratching my head trying to work something out, and then when I do, it hasn't taken me so long that I just feel exhausted and annoyed. I experienced none of that. In fact, it was just kind of fun. I just worked it out and I was oh, that's how you do it. Okay, that's cool. And I just moved on it was some kind of game. It's not a super difficult program to learn. And considering how many features it has, that's really good. File compatibility between Krita and GIMP is okay. It can't open up GIMP's native XCF file. It just comes out blank. But the open raster file format is, you can use it between GIMP, MyPaint and Krita mostly fine. So you can just do that. Yes, I really don't know why I'm always mentioning file compatibility as the last thing on my mind, for these programs, but there you go. Now let's talk about some more simple painting programs. I don't mean necessarily simple to use, they are just much smaller programs. Actually, one of them is very simple to use. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Mtpaint. It's an incredibly small and lightweight painting app programmed in the C programming language. So if your computer is an actual potato from the year 2000, you could still easily run this program. Like on ancient PC hardware, they claim like 200 megahertz CPU and 16 megabytes of free RAM. Yeah, so you'd have to go to like the 1990s to find a computer that this program couldn't run on. It does look pretty good for pixel art though. It is very unconventional, like the way transparency works between layers by selecting one of the 256 colors it supports as a transparent one is a bit strange. I find the whole program a bit strange actually. It also supports an alpha channel as well, which can be edited after you select the alpha channel option from the channels menu. It's also got selection and mask channels up there as well. Now the first time I used Mtpaint, I said, well, looks like this program can't really do anything at all. But the more I looked at it and the more I read the manual, it was actually surprisingly powerful for a program which is just like in a handful of megabytes. Unfortunately, some of it feels like a program that was created with the interface expectations of 1995. For example, you can't click on a layer and then just like drag it around. I haven't found a way to do that anyway. The only way I could found that you can actually move a layer around is by using the resize canvas tool. And then instead of using it to resize the canvas, you change the offset of the canvas, which by the way doesn't happen in real time. You'll see the result of the numbers you pressed in after you press OK. It also has a very basic animation tool. But like most of this program, I can't say it is intuitive. I would have to read the documentation to have any chance of using it. And also to save the layers as a single editable file is done by saving them individually, and then Mtpaint can create a text file with all of your layers in it so you can easily load them back in later. Now I have already alluded to how few system resources this Mtpaint program actually uses, and now I'd like to give you a demonstration of that using a truly ancient laptop. Right, so here is my ancient Toshiba Satellite Pro 4200 series. This was the second one I managed to get my hands on. Someone gave it to me. The first one I got was this one, which I got from an op shop for $10 because the old lady didn't know how it worked. When I got this, it was only like 8 years old or 9 years old or something, I don't know. Here we go. Oh, it's turning on. Now, what I want to show you on this 25-year-old system is, on this operating system which hasn't been updated for the past who knows how long, Mtpaint, there we go. There it is. Good old Mtpaint. Right, so while playing around with Mtpaint on this 25-year-old laptop, this is probably a 15-year-old copy of Mtpaint, I discovered something. If you go to Image and then Preferences, Tablet. Look at that. You can configure a tablet, graphics tablet in this thing. And you've got dynamics like the size, flow and opacity. That is crazy. This thing just keeps on getting more and more powerful the more I look at it. Okay, I went to Image, Preferences, Tablet and configured my XP Pen graphics tablet in Mtpaint, and it actually works. I've got brush dynamics now. So I've been playing with Mtpaint a bit more on my desktop, and I've come to the conclusion that I haven't done it justice. So I'm going to say that right now, because I was editing the video and I thought, man, did I make it sound worse than it is? It has some pretty good image editing capabilities. Like here I combined a house cat and a tiger. That worked pretty well. And I gave this guy an extra couple of toes for good measure. I think I said a few other things wrong, like it only has 256 colours. It actually has 24-bit colours. The palette down here is just 256 colours. It's got an alpha channel, a selection channel, and also a mask channel. So if I select the mask channel, for example, I can just draw a mask. Right? Not disable mask. There we go. So I can draw a mask, or I can erase the mask. And now, if I go back to the image editing channel, can do a paint bucket, for example, and see, the mask is not touched. Very useful. And I can disable the mask and fill that in too. Oh yes. Imagine if they released a Tickle Me Elmo toy, but the only way to make it laugh would be to telnet into it over a network and then type in activate laugh. That is my initial impression of the Mtpaint program. It does too little and it's too complicated to use. I thought it was just a toy that was too difficult to use. But I was wrong. I was very wrong. And because of that, I'm almost half wondering if it doesn't belong in the simple painting program category. Is it a simple painting program? Well, technically yes. Is it like super simple to use? Are you just going to just jump straight into it? Well, no. But it's definitely more than meets the eye, and I think it's worth learning because it's one of those programs which looks like it's going to basically be the same for the rest of eternity. Because each time it gets an update every, I don't know, 8 years or whatever it is, it's still basically the same. And out of all of these simpler painting programs, Mtpaint is the one I prefer to use. It just took me a little while longer to learn how to use it. Okay, Lazpaint. So out of all of these simpler painting programs, this one is the most feature-rich. It's even got some path tools which are usable. It's got cage deform, perspective deform. You can have 3 vector objects per layer. It's got good shape tools. I mean, actually, come to think of it, GIMP doesn't even have a shape creation tool. You've got to use like a selection or a path, and then you've got to stroke the path. Yeah, anyway. The text tool is vector-based until you need to like edit its perspective with a cage transform or something. And I didn't even need to read some manual to understand it. Unlike Mtpaint, experimentation was enough. It's got layers, like they all do. Imaging, editing tools. Seems quite fast as well. And you can also directly import an OBJ 3D object into it, and it will convert it into a picture for you. It's also got a bunch of effects that you can apply and generate. There's really not too much to complain about. I mean, it does have a pretty outdated looking interface, but let's not get too picky. And except maybe the pop-up notifications. The pop-up notifications don't work too well with the i3 window manager. And I found that kind of annoying. It usually took up at least half the screen or something. That's probably a problem I could fix, but I'm not the kind of person that spends ages beautifying their window manager. Got other things to do. And now the final simple painting program we'll be looking at is the one you should actually try out first if you want a simple user interface, with only some basic features. So you can make a quick edit or drawing, like a quick meme for example, and then you can get on with something else you would prefer to do with your life. And that program is called Pinter. I hate to use the phrase children's toy, but it does feel like that when comparing it to a program like GIMP. But it is designed to be very simple to use. That's its main feature. So simple and boring, as soon as I looked at it, I just understood it immediately. It has quite a few effects that you can apply and generate. It has no perspective or cage transform tools like Lazpaint, but it does feel a bit more user-friendly to use than Lazpaint. Now version 3 had some bug which meant I couldn't save a file from it, on my computer anyway. Sometimes I suspect there's something wrong with my Arch Linux installation. I'm getting more random bugs than I've ever had in the past 10 years, which is sort of how old my installation is. It's amazing how it has survived so many years of undocumented tinkering by a moron such as myself. Anyway, version 2.1 worked really well for Pinter. Yeah, very easy. And now it's time for some honourable mentions. Apps which are very good, but for whatever reason I just don't want to paint in them. The first one is one I just recently discovered. It's called OurPaint. This painting app has so much potential, and I'm very interested to see how it's going to develop. Right now I just don't want to use it. It still feels a bit too early in development. I think it's only been in development for a few years, but considering how usable it is, I am quite impressed. At first I thought it was being developed by like a small team of people. Like it's only been in development for a few years. I thought, surely maybe a small team of people is involved. But then I realised that the website for OurPaint, as well as the Git repository, is hosted on what looks like a personal website. Then I realised this program is being developed by a single Chinese guy, whose name is... Okay, a Westerner is about to pronounce a Chinese name. Here we go. Wu Yiming. I probably did a terrible job of that. Anyway, I looked at some of the artwork that was made with OurPaint, and I thought, oh yeah, that's very good. I wonder who painted this. Oh, it's the same person. Not only have they made an open source painting app, but he has also made a short full colour comic with it, which displays a better understanding of colour and light than what I have. Amazing. Just amazing. It also has an infinite canvas feature that MyPaint has. It's not quite as feature-rich as MyPaint. In fact, OurPaint is described as a featureless and programmable painting app. Featureless is the key word. And the programmable part, I think, is just this really cool node-based brush engine. It's really quite complex. I have to show you. It is pretty featureless, to be honest. This here is the coolest feature it has. It is a node-based brush editor and a seemingly infinite canvas. So this is what it looks like when you start it up. It looks something like this. If you want to make a new brush, you have to go to brushes, this button here, and then you click on new brush, and then you go to tools, and then you can rename the brush. Okay, nice brush. And then if you want to make a node-based brush, you've got to click Use Nodes. Okay, then you go to Brush Nodes, and then you add a bunch of these racks to put nodes in. Okay, and then you can add a node. So I want some inputs, so I'll click Brush Device, and I will also add Brush Settings. And then you want maybe some maths and some values to modify the input settings and input values, a mapper as well, and then you need some outputs. Okay, driver brush outputs, there we go. And then you can start wiring all this nonsense together. So currently it looks like this. How boring. It is a slightly more complicated way to modify a brush, I must say. I'm going to turn this to multiply. I'm going to grab a value from here. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to make the value like 4 times, and then I'm going to grab the pressure. Yeah, put pressure in there. The output can go now into size, and now I should be able to get, yeah, that's good. For some reason, in this program, my graphics tablet's sensitivity to pressure is like really low, so you just got to like multiply the power for some reason to make it usable. 14 times. Oh yeah, now we're talking. Right, I could also put that into a this thing here. Put that out into size, and I can. There we go. I can map this so it has a more gradual slope. Something like that. Yeah. What's the maximum out? Maximum, is that input? Maximum output. Here we go. Try that. Whoa. That is rather big. And maybe I want the size to affect the gunkiness, yeah, of the thing. So now I've got this. Anyway, let's take a look at some other examples that comes with the program to give you an idea of how complicated this node-based system can eventually look if you get real creative with it. Check that out. Oh dear. Wow. And that is to make this brush here. Halftone. Let's check out halftone. Yeah. I think this is the most complicated node-based brush in this program. It's the halftone. Like if you look at the halftone it produces, it actually does a very good job, and it doesn't even overlay other halftones over the top of it. It's always like that. Isn't that great? Possibly because they use the canvas position setting here. So that is definitely an interesting program which is really worth keeping your eye on. And now also Blender deserves an honourable mention. Yes, Blender. Isn't it a 3D program, you might be thinking? Well, Blender is the art program that can do anything. But should you use it for everything? I don't think so. Blender does have a raster-based painting feature called Texture Paint, which is designed to paint textures onto 3D objects. You can either paint directly onto the 3D object, or use the Texture Paint window to paint onto a 2D canvas, which is what I did. The brush engine is pretty good. It doesn't support layers. Texture Paint does not support layers. I'm sure someone is going to say, oh, it does support layers. You know, you need to do this and that and blah, 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 blah. Even though that is technically incorrect, me saying that it doesn't support layers, I'm going to stand by that opinion, because the two options that I know of are either using that node-based compositor to create layers of multiple images onto like a plane or something, or some kind of add-on. Both feel like hacks compared to using a standalone 2D raster-based painting program with all those features included. But Texture Paint is there, and it is useful for its purpose, so I think it's worth a mention. Also, Blender has another way of painting called the Grease Pencil, which is very cool, and it also makes an excellent animation tool for 2D animation, but that is solely vector-based in like a 3D environment, which is outside the scope of this video. This is about raster graphic programs, okay? Raster graphics, yeah, okay. So which one are you going to pick? Oh, you're not going to pick one. Oh, because you're going to pick all of them? Yeah, because they're all free to download. Yeah, like free software has such great hoardability. Like my computer could be used as a software repository, actually. Yeah. No? Not that? You think open source software is garbage? Really? Do you even know what runs the internet these days? Well, I have to agree with you that free software does lag behind the paid stuff by like at least 10 years sometimes. But we had some great software 10 years ago. Look at the stuff we made with it. Ah, Adobe now, is it? You want to compare community projects to a multi-billion-dollar software company. Oh, very nice. Yeah, a company that's known for getting away with an overpriced subscription service which scraped the personal works of its users for its AI training. That company. Oh, you want AI integration. Oh, okay, well, goodbye. Have a nice life. That's right, you heard me. Go off and pretend to be creative as you suckle off some digital parasite which is consuming the works of all mankind.